call it the Spay-it-forward, in that it's from a movie, Play It Forward, or Pay It Forward, and it really does make sense. And it's kind of, I've worked with NGOs, nonprofits, whatever you want to call them, for years and years and years. I've been a veterinarian for 24 years, and there's always conflict, but I really, as a veterinarian, my feeling is, and why have a middleman? No offense to NGOs or nonprofits or shelters, but the truth is, as a veterinarian, why should I be holding to someone else when I could be doing the work myself? And in the States, what we're finding is more and more veterinarians have really lucrative jobs in humane societies, and they're kind of taking charge of these things, and some of them are running shelters. So it just opens up more jobs for us potentially in the future. Let me see. So, Spaying-it-forward. These are my 3 main goals, and that's the first one: enhance the sustainability of basic health care for companion animals. Well, we can get debates what basic health care is, but to me, it's definitely spay, neuter, vaccinations, teen flip control. You know, basic things. You know, it's just like with humans, and that's certainly in the animal's best interest. Enhance the human-animal bond. Well, that's going to be in the interest of the animal and the person, so that's the human-animal bond, and we know a lot more about that, and I can give you all kinds of stats why children should be around animals. They're healthier. If you look at their saliva, the immunoglobulins in their saliva is normal to higher ranges than kids that don't have animals. You know, and the big trend in America is if your kid touches the ground, you wipe their hands with some sterile towel, you know, and all these kids, we have an outbreak of asthma that just didn't exist before. And it's directly correlated with not being dirty. Once again, there's some benefits to being dirty, especially when you're little. And I'm a little sick now, but truthfully, I really rarely get sick. And part of it is I was really a dirty little kid, so I think that's it. Enhance the overall health and welfare of companion animals and their caretakers. That's a societal thing, all right? You can't be in this field and not be conscious of zoonotic diseases. So if even in spay and neuter, I can make the argument, and when we get back to that whole welfare, I can spay and neuter to reduce populations in a town that may have 200,000 street dogs. But if you don't really have a street dog population, or you're dealing with small groups of cats, feral cats, which seems to be more common here, small colonies, are you obligated only to spay and neuter? And should you not try to do a few more things, you know, to stop the spread of potential zoonotic diseases to children and to other people, you know, that people take care of those animals. So there's a social responsibility. I think part of the problem is, as humans, we tend to think very linear. You know, whatever we're taught, whatever we've done, that's what we do. You know, and I've said this before, behavior, you know, people fear change, but I think it's real important, especially in the scientific world, to say, well, why have we done it? Why do we do it this way? And why can't we do it this way? And I also think it's real important when we say we want to do it this way, say, okay, why do you do it that way? What are the benefits? What's the cost-benefit analysis? So I don't believe we just willy-nilly do something different, but I really do believe no one's hit perfection yet. Okay, so until you can say you have the perfect protocol, the perfect everything, always question what you do. And it's been a really good thing for me, because I'm probably my worst critic, quite frankly. If I make a mistake, man, I can roll over my brain 1,000,000 times to figure out, okay, how could I have done it different? What would have been different? And when we have an animal die in my surgery suite, the first thing I ask, who made a mistake? And what's the first comment? It's an anesthetic reaction. Well, overdosing with a drug is an anesthetic reaction, but you know, technically, it's a human problem too. So I really think if you have a mindset that it asks, the first question should be, where did we go wrong, or what did we do wrong? And you look at the whole process, say, okay, everything seems to be normal. Maybe it truly was an anesthetic reaction. Maybe there was something else going on. But you know, don't just dismiss it. In the field of veterinary medicine, it's really easy to say, well, it was an anesthetic reaction, and yes, by overdosing it, that is an anesthetic reaction, but we don't admit that part of it. And I've always found that honesty is the best policy. And I told you before, I knew the first dog I ever killed, it was an anesthetic reaction. We gave it 3 times the dose. So it reacted and died. And it never dawned on me at the time I did it that that's what had happened. But it was in a school, on a gymnasium like this, or a stage like this, and we had our drugs set out for the dogs that were coming in line, and one of the kids switched the drugs. You know, they didn't know, you know, and we didn't pay attention. And the one dog we gave it the drug to, and it just dropped over dead. And the next dog, we had to buck 2 or 3, 4 or 5 times because it wouldn't go to sleep. And it wasn't until about midnight, we were sitting around drinking a beer, and I just kept thinking, you know, why did that dog die? And I saw in my mind's eye my hand with that syringe, and I remember the size of the dog. I'm thinking, that doesn't make sense. It was too big, you know. And we realized what had happened at that point. And I actually called the owners the next day and told them that I killed your dog. It was a mistake, but I killed him. And I really feel like I've never gone wrong by being honest with people. It's not always fun, but it's the right thing to do. You've seen this one before. So, paradigm shift in thinking, that's what we want. In America, 70% of households have pets. Only 40% have children. Of the 70% that have pets, 65% view them as their children, a part of the family. That's a pretty good stat, and those are the people you want as clients. AKC, American Kennel Club, registration is at an all-time low. Adoption from shelters is at an all-time high. So it does happen, but adopting from the shelter has to be made popular. It has to be, so if you get some famous Portuguese TV star to adopt an animal and not go down and buy, a registered breed, and more people are going to want to do it. Or if you can get a phone company to advertise something other than a purebred animal, then more people will possibly see that as a good thing. So there are ways, that we can play these games, and the more people we can get on our side, the faster the crescendo goes in terms of getting more animals adopted, more animals saved. What's the magnitude of the problem? It's not bad in Portugal. It's horrendous in India. It's horrendous in Mexico. So it is a relative thing. Now if you're the little lady dealing with the 40 cats, running around your neighborhood, you see it as a horrendous thing because you see dead kittens and all that. But I'm just saying, I stand back once again. My wife's the kind of person, you heard the story of the starfish, where the little girl throwing starfish back in the ocean, and the man comes up and says, "Why are you doing that?" Because there's starfish everywhere. "Well, I'm trying to save the life." He goes, "Well, there's thousands, or you can't really help." She said, "Well, it makes a difference to this one," and throws it back. Well, that's my wife, and I'm the guy who said, "Well, why can't we just build a big old dike out there and prevent it from ever coming to the shore to begin with?" So I'm always looking at a bigger solution, a bigger way of doing things. And you have to have both. You have to have the people that look at the level right in front, because I will step over dogs to get to the other, the bigger set of dogs. And I have to admit, I am that way. It's just the way I'm wired. It's a utilitarian principle. If you have to kill a few to save a lot more, I'm willing to do that. A lot of people aren't, and it's a very individual thing. The carrying capacity environment, I didn't really talk about that earlier, but in India, if you just go and do killing or even spay neuter and if you crash the population fast, something has to eat that. I mean, whatever those animals are eating, something else is going to eat. So you get to pick what you want to live with. And you can say, well, we don't want those cats, but you get rid of all the cats in a small village, you're going to have more rats. I'll guarantee it. So in India, well, in the case of Mexico, they had a town that killed cats. They had a rabies outbreak. I think it was one cat that had rabies. Never infected anybody. And they ended up killing a whole bunch of cats for several years, and then they had the outbreak of the plague. Okay, so, in the environment in Mexico, India, Turkey, if you don't start with garbage disposal and cleaning up the environment, everything else you do is almost moot. I mean, you can kind of sustain certain populations. One of the examples they gave this at the conference was the vultures in India are being killed by this toxin, and there's virtually none left. So now all the dead cows that are taken to the dump and left there, that the vultures used to eat, are now being eaten by dogs. So the dumps that had 200 dogs now have 1,200 dogs, because the carrying capacity of the land went way up. We changed the environment, and then those things have consequences. Then you have a much greater chance of zoonotic diseases being spread back to humans, because dogs interact more with us, and their rabies just went up dramatically, because most of those dogs are not fixed or vaccinated. And they may be on the outskirts of town, but once they get rabies, they don't know that. They're going to come in wherever they go is where they go. And so it's a real thing. The concept of ownership, dramatically different. You can go up to, in Mexico, you can go up to people and say, "You have 10 dogs in the front yard. Do you have any dogs?" "No." "How about those dogs?" "Well, that one there, that's our dog." And it's always a male dog, never female, okay? And not because everybody says, "What's good, they're sexist." And they're not sexist. They know female dogs create the problems. They have the puppies. They're not stupid people. They're not being educated. They're not stupid. So they're afraid they're going to get in trouble or something. So there's no, that's our dog. But you say, "Well, how about if we take the other ones?" No. Well, no, where are you going to take them? What are you going to do with them? So it's not that they don't care, but they don't have the financial means to necessarily do the right thing, and they still care on some level. And we were in incredibly poor areas just a couple weeks ago in India, and you'd see things of rice and leftover food out for the dogs, set up just for the dogs. Even in some of the Muslim places, they were feeding some of the dogs, which is unusual for Muslims. But the reality of it is, people do care, you know, but that doesn't necessarily make them the owner. Obviously, in America, we think if you're an owner, well, that's a dog sleeps in your bed with you, you know, in your house, okay? So, concept of ownership is dramatically different and very culturally relevant. You do have to put things in perspective. Supply and demand, we talked about that. Human-animal bond, I can give you all kinds of stats on why it's a good thing. Zoonosis is a real big thing. And that's one thing I was really glad for them to talk about, the welfare of individual animals, because when you start getting the welfare of individual animals and putting on a bigger scale, you do have to talk about disease, and you have to talk about worms, and you have to talk about parasites, all these different things, and all those things, a lot of them anyway, have zoonotic potential. You know, there's like some 900 infectious microbes that are infectious to humans, and about 700 of those are zoonotic. Okay, so it may be a Campylobacter, it may be a bacterium, it may be an E. coli, but the point is, those things, and especially places like India where they don't necessarily have fresh water and things like that, those are real issues. You know, they're just realities to life. So the word solistagia, I always liked it. I'm probably not pronouncing it right. I saw it for the first time a few years ago, but I call it background information. If you walk into this building and you walk in every day and there's a spot on the wall, you know, and I'll defy you to do this in your own veterinary hospital if you have one, because I do it in mine, and it proves me right every time. There's a spot on the wall. Once you walk past it for like 2 days, it becomes background. It's just there, all right? You ignore it. And that's what people do, you know. If they see cruelty and poverty and those things all the time, it's no longer significant to them. It's what the brain does. It just pushes it back, and it just ignores it, you know, and that's what you do as humans to survive. Now, some people, it doesn't happen to all people, but the vast majority of people, that's what we do. We just choose to ignore and not look at it because it bothers us. So it's easier just not to think about it. But I've sat there and had blood spots in one spot in my exam room, and I sit there and watch that for 3 days, nobody wash it. And it can be something that simple, because no one pays attention to it, because whoever saw it just ignored it, and it becomes part of the wall, you know. Where I was trained in the fast food industry, and that was one of the things they taught us about, you know. And in one sense, I could walk up front and in 2 seconds go, that vent's clean, the top of my refrigerator's clean, and people are up there, they're good employees of mine, but they'll sit there and just ignore that stuff until I say clean it. And I don't feel like I should have to tell them that. But it's one of those human nature things. We just put things on our back burner, ignore it. If something's broken, I'll fix it next week. I'll fix it next week. I'll fix it. I mean, how many times have you heard that? Women from their husbands, you know? It happens all the time. Right? So. This is, I absolutely believe in this. Legislation, education, sterilization. Those are the big three, you know? That's how you get a shift. The law is imperfect. The law is written by politicians. The law is written for legal reasons. And many times when we write laws, we don't take into account animal welfare, because politicians don't really care much about animal welfare in one sense, all right? Most of them in general. As a vet, I try to deal with politicians in terms of humans, not animals. Even though it's the animal interest in the back of my mind, I have in mind, and I think it's a really good technique, because once again, if I can prove that I can stabilize a population, reduce the amount of zoonotic diseases, you know, and the first thing I said, well, there's zoonotic diseases, what are that? And you tell them, well, let's just kill all the animals. It doesn't work. I can give them 1 million studies that show them it doesn't work. You drop the population maybe 1, 2 years, and then you have bigger litters, and it goes right back up, and it usually shoots over. So unless they're willing to put money in every year for the next, you know, 1 million years, they're never going to get on top of it. And you never catch them all, is the point. And because they reproduce so much faster than we do, they come back really, really fast. And then you have the carrying capacity of the land. So we can just get into all kinds of scenarios where killing does not work. It's expensive, it's inefficient, and it's not humane. You know, there's just no rationale in this day and age, in the 21st century, to be killing animals as a form of population control. It does not work. So legislation, education, you start with the law, and sometimes they enforce it, and sometimes they don't. But ultimately, once the law's on the books, as a society, we tend to move forward from that point. We don't tend to back up. We don't tend to take laws off the books, you know. Sometimes we probably should, some of the outdated things, but for the most part, we move forward, you know, and sometimes it's 1 step to the side, sometimes it's 1 step back, but it's usually 2 steps forward. So if you look at the turn of the century, what we were doing with children, women in America couldn't vote, you know. It wasn't, when I was in high school, they honestly didn't think women could run a marathon. That's the thinking, you know, that was in the 70s. okay? Now we know for a fact, if you look at bad waters, these really long races, 100 and 100-mile races plus, women are not only catching the men, they're passing the men. You know, so they, you know, we have these preconceived ideas about life in general. I mean, at one point we thought the world was flat, right? You know, so, but those things do change over time, obviously. And they change from people like you and me questioning and saying, why? Why? Why this? Why that? You know? So a lot of this stuff is repeated because, like I said, I usually do one of these, and there are just some of the main points. Money's a limiting factor. We already talked about this. The no-kill movement is really big in America, and it's really popular with feral cat people. You know, we don't kill under any circumstance. We just don't kill them, but we're not going to abort the babies. And my position is very utilitarian, which is basically cost-benefit ratio. And I hate to look at life like that, but the truth is the same for humans. If you sit here and actually believe that humans in Africa get anywhere near the same level of medical treatment that they do in England, you know, in England versus America versus whatever. If you have money, of course. But if you don't have money, it's not the same. And you can, then you get into that whole quality of life versus quality of life welfare. What's in the welfare of that individual animal? And it is us playing God to some degree. I'm not afraid to do that. I look at my dogs, I know how they are. I want good quality of life for animals. Having said that, I'm not going to just kill them for no reason. If they have a decent quality, they can be fixed and maybe vaccinated and given some flea and tick control, even if it's only once. They're at least, you know, they have a sustainable, decent life. And there's really good studies that just came out of India too, that's not published yet. But basically, if you look at street dogs in cities with no trap neuter release, little bit of trap neuter release, and a lot of trap neuter release, what they found is those animals, the cities that had the most spay neuter in return, all right, back to the street, had overall healthier dog populations. Even unfixed animals were just healthier. They were living longer, they were just had less problems. And as you spay and neuter more and more, the other animals around and vaccinate, you stop the spread of certain diseases and you just make the whole population healthier. And that translates over to healthier and healthy human populations. In all honesty, you have less zoonotic diseases, they just become healthier. So those have become really important things. Obviously, you know how I feel about warehousing. How do you define warehousing? I don't know. I don't know when too much is too much. I don't know when, you know, $5,000 for a surgery, is that immoral? You know, it probably is immoral if it's for a broken toe. You know, I mean, 'cause what can I do with that money? You know, maybe it's not immoral for a total hip replacement. But then again, I can do an FHO for $100, not, you know, maybe $200, not lose any money, and there's no difference to the animal in the long run. Statistically, they're the same. So is it morally right to spend $5,000 on a cat for an FHO? I mean, for a total hip replacement or a small dog, when you can do a FHO and it costs a few $100s and the results are the same? You know, it gets into that whole technology thing. When is too much, too much? Humane organizations. We kind of went over this, but you know, it's the same thing, spay, neuter, education, all the things, but talk sustainability. Okay, you want to help animals, you want to help cats, you want to help dogs, I don't care, you're not a veterinarian. If you're a veterinarian, it's a lot easier. We got it easy, and we can kind of control the groups to some degree. We can ask what we want, maybe we get it, maybe we don't, but we can say no, or we can say yes, and that's kind of and that's really an advantage we have. If I'm the little old lady who wants to help the cats, and I'm on a fixed income, and I live in a little, you know, small house, and I don't have much money, yeah, how do I help? How can I do it? You know, and if you form a group, then the first thing you should be thinking of is, okay, here's our group, and we all put in €50, and this is what we have. What are we going to do with it? Well, spay and neuter, you know, 5 animals. That may make a big difference. It may not make any difference. So those are the questions I ask all the time. How are you going to sustain that? And bake sales. I mean, they made some money out here today, you know. So if you can get people to volunteer, to give up things, you know, there's just all kinds of ways. But I really do ask, is it sustainable, long term? Everything I do, everywhere in the world, I think about sustainability. I build clinics and I give them to veterinarians. I put $500,000 into Slovakia, and now it's controlled by one veterinarian who has multiple employees, but he gets that. And when I die, it's just his. That's the way it is. He's paying me back, and this is, we'll go into this is why I call it Spay-it-forward. He's paying me back my original investment, no interest, and only if there's no funds available. Thank God, every year there's been funds available. So, and, you know, and it's the same way it works in Mexico. I put about $475,000 in Mexico. We have a digital X-ray machine in Mexico. Half the human doctors don't have that stuff available to them. We have gas anesthesia. I mean, we have a lot of really cool things in that clinic there. And they're probably going to do well over $300,000 US down there. And they pay me back $10,000 to $20,000 a year. And we take that money, we put it right back into nonprofit work, which is the best of both worlds. But you have to be sustainable somehow, you know, versus always begging. Now, if you can write grants and you can beg in big cities, you can get away with quite a bit of that. Or if you have some person from Germany or America that wants to fund you, that's great. You know, we had one of the shelters, one of the veterinary hospitals, technically, was funded by a German lady, but they were doing nonprofit work. So some people they charge, some people they do free support for, you know, and that's the way it worked. And that's my model. That's what I've been doing for years. And you know, now whether she makes her money back, I don't know. We didn't get into the finances of it. But my goal is to build hospitals around the world, uplift people, veterinarians. My veterinarians working in Mexico are at the top 10% of the income bracket of Mexico, and they've been out, well, 7 years max. You know, they'd never be there if it wasn't for that clinic. And I'm going to say it wasn't for me, because I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for them. You know, it's a mutual, symbiotic relationship, and they become part of my family. They are part of my family. You know, we're really close. Peter Curley, same kind of thing. You know, he has this for-profit, he's a veterinarian, but they have the Rex Foundation. They go into schools. I mean, you can find that balance. It just takes a little bit of thinking outside the box, and it does take a little bit of, okay, you know, you're going to give someone $500,000, you know, in a country, you know, you sign these contracts. I don't read Slovakia. I had no idea what I was writing. You know, he could own my clinic in America for all I knew, you know, but that's done on trust, you know, and you meet the right people. And I'll have to say, most animal people I meet are pretty darn nice. So these are all the different possibilities, you know, kill versus no kill. Do you run a facility for the government where you have to kill? You know, after 8 days here, you have the option. Right? But maybe you don't have to kill them, but if aggressive dog or sick dog, then you can't maybe want to kill them. Maybe if they're coming in with multiple breaks or something, maybe it's more humane to kill them on the first day, you know? And we have those kind of, you know, once again, those are debated in the law all the time. And when's it right, when it's wrong? The veterinary facility, you know, hoarding situation, conventional versus, I'm very non-conventional. You know, I always think it's funny when people say, well, you know, my regular vet. Hey, what the hell am I? Your regular vet? You know? So my regular vet says, you know, I said, well, then why are you here? Go back to your regular vet. You know, I mean, I'm not out there soliciting business. I've got plenty of business. I don't need a whole lot of extra business. So, but you know, you get it. Well, my regular vet says I should do this every year. Well, no, I don't think you do. Heartworm testing is an example. In Colorado, we don't have that much. We have very little heartworm, and it snows and it's cold. And if you know anything about heartworm, if it's below 56 degrees Fahrenheit, I don't know how it is in Celsius, then you can't have, you know, the worm evolve. It just doesn't, the life cycle is broken, you know. And we have a lot of days that way, you know. And so you really need to be heartworm meds 6 months of the year. So if you're on meds for those 6 months, and we really believe in the medication, then why should you have to test next spring for heartworm? Why just give them the medication, you know? And for the record, even if you give them medication, it doesn't kill the adult worms anyway. You're not going to do any harm if they have heartworm. They're just going to keep on developing. But for a while, we couldn't get a miticide, and so what was the treatment? Put them on heartworm medication for the next 5 or 6 years until the worm just died a natural death. So, you know, so unless they're a stage 5 or 4 or 5, you don't worry about stage 1, 2, or 3 in terms of cough, you know, I mean, you just don't worry about it. So it's kind of funny how medicine sometimes suits the situation, you know, and it's financially driven. But I, once again, think sustainability first. You know, the thing about in the States is, like I say, more and more nonprofits are adding veterinary things on, which is good for us because it gives us jobs. And they're nice jobs because, once again, they tend to be 9 to 5 jobs, no after hours, no weekends, those kind of things, you know, so that's not bad. The question is, are you doing that just for the animals in the shelter, or do you have something that's open to the public? You charge the public? Is it on a sliding scale? Those are all the kind of questions that have to be asked. I mentioned this before, the veterinary profession is changing, gentlemen, okay? We are a minority, all right? Get used to it. It's only going to get worse. And the truth is, females in America have driven compassion into our field. You can disagree with it, you can like it, not like it. It's a reality, and it's only going to get worse. I just had one of my best vets, who I dearly love, quit on me. She gave me notice. But the truth is, she's so sentimental and so in tune to animals and so emotional about it, she can't handle dealing with the things we do at a level we do on a day-to-day basis. I mean, she is the person that keeps them around, but she has the money to afford to do that too, in the luxury. You know, I mean, that is a luxury in a lot of ways to be able to do that. So, you know, where I have another vet that's very much like her, but just never gives up. I mean, she just, you know, a little bit tougher and a little bit thicker skin, and she can, you know, but she's very compassion driven, but she sees the bigger picture. You know, my one vet can't see the forest because of the trees, and my other vet, I feel like, sees both. You know, she gets the big picture. Yeah, this is really bad, this animal here, and this really makes me not feel good, but the big picture is we're doing so much other good things. You know, so it's trying to find that balance. And whether you're working for an NGO or an NGO is working for you, in Riga, Latvia, the Humane Society there had built a big facility new. The smart thing they did was at a veterinary hospital. Now, they decided just to rent the veterinary hospital and not hire a vet. If I would have hired the vet, from a business standpoint, it would have been more efficient. But what they did is rented the place, and that's one of the best veterinary hospitals in all Riga. And the nice thing is, it's right next door to the adoption center. Where do you think those people go when they adopt an animal? And they do low-cost work for the shelter because they're connected with it, but they're separate. So it's like two different businesses working together. Those are the kind of things that they say, once again, I'm a businessman first, and I know the more money I can make, the more good I can do. Another example for me, and this is something, I don't know if you vets do these kind of things, but my facility in Denver, we always close at 6:30, and we're usually out at 7. We didn't have it overnight. We don't do overnight. They have emergency clinics all around. That's all they do. They don't even open up until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then they go all night, and then they close down the next day, and they ship the animals out if at all possible. My clinic is huge, and it's just sitting there at night, so I just asked one of my friends who's working at different veterinarians doing emergency work, so why don't you just rent my place? So basically now he rents my place, comes in at 7, we close at 6:30, they open their doors at 7, a total different crew, I don't pay them, I don't have to be in charge of them, they rent my facility, they pay my mortgage, you know, so they totally pay for my building, which is great, and then they do their work, and the really great part is, he doesn't do broken bones and stuff like that. So when the emergencies come in, I get them the next day to do surgery on them. You know, so if they go quote to a real emergency center, which is many times 3 or 4 times higher, he does his work more expensive than I would charge, but it's less expensive than a lot of people charge. So many dogs will go in a broken leg and they'll give them some pain meds, but if they say it's a broken femur, they don't put a cast on because it costs too much. They X-ray it. They give them all this stuff, and they spent $1,000, you know, 800, 600, 700, 800 euros, and they've done nothing. And they come to me and they say, well, we don't have any money left. And I go, for $600 or 600 euros, I'd have done all that and fixed the broken leg, you know. So it's like, okay, so it really has worked out good for my business. Same old thing, you know, principles remain the same everywhere in the world. A broken leg is a broken leg, you know. Needing to make money is needing to make money. Being sustainable is being sustainable. You know, but learn from other people's mistakes. Grab on other people's ideas. That's the one thing I like about the Rex Foundation and Dogs Trust. They put stuff out there and they just let you plagiarize, they let you take it, they let you do whatever you want to with it, you know, and that's the great thing, because there's no reason for me to have to sit down and make videos and do these things when I got all my friends and other people doing it, where I can just take their stuff and, you know, kind of take credit for it in an indirect way, so it works out great. When you're getting into veterinary work, you know, and this is, once again, unless you're rich and you can buy a clinic and just start in the full service work, that's great, you know, or if you can get the big loans, that kind of thing. Coming out of school, I couldn't, even if I wanted to. So I did just spay neuter and shots. I started with vaccines, made money from vaccines, and then went to spay neuter. And spay neuter was always my goal. And then people bring in, okay, this cat's here to be fixed, but it has a tooth root abscess. Oh, what do you do? I haven't done dentals in 3 years, you know. We didn't even learn about dentals. I mean, we learned the basics about dentals, but we never really did dentals in vet school, you know. So you're sitting there with a hammer and a screwdriver chiseling out a tooth, you know. It's like, oh, there's got to be better instruments for this and things like that. I mean, that's kind of the way we started. And it was mobile stuff. All we did was mobile. I was actually coined the father of modern day mobile spay neuter in the States by Spay USA years ago. And they had a picture of me with this big mobile van we had, which we figured out real fast. You can only do about 20, 30 animals, 40 animals a day in that. And once we got past that, it's like, okay, now we do the task force where we do, you know, 100, 200 in a day. So totally different techniques. But it is question, and at that point, I wasn't thinking about long-term welfare of the animal, individual animal welfare. I just wanted to stop the population. You know, so what do you do with the abscess? You know, what do you do with the tooth root? What do you do with the broken toe? You know, those are all, so I just added, every year, my goal for the first 10 years of the business was do something new, find something new to do. And my first bone surgery, the only reason I did my first bone surgery was Dr. Chamberlain, my veterinary partner at the time, was drilling a pin, and it came out and went to his finger. So he said, I can't do this, you know, finish the surgery. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'll talk you through it. He didn't know any more than I did, quite frankly. He just wasn't afraid, you know, and I was kind of apprehensive about it. And that's, you know, how I did my first bone surgery. So, you know, after that, I was like, okay, it wasn't that bad. You know, it worked out okay, so maybe we'll try some more. So, you know, we just added more materials, got more instruments. But if you overreach initially, then a lot of times then it becomes a financial burden to you. And if it's a financial burden to you, then you get stressed. And then when people actually give something, you're like, no, go away, leave me alone, you know. And that's where we're kind of poor business managers. I think people want to open up and be able to do everything. I mean, in theory, once you graduate, you can do brain surgery on a mouse to an elephant. But should anyone here do brain surgery? Probably not, you know, in all honesty. Legally, in the States, you could. But morally, ethically, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't, you know. I'm to the point now, people occasionally bring a goat or, I don't know, a bird or something to one of the clinics, like, I have no idea, you know, I won't touch them, because, you know, I mean, really, it is malpractice. I wouldn't even know what drugs to give them. It's been, you know, I haven't been in school for 24 years. I know dogs and cats, that's it, you know. You get outside of that, I'm totally guessing. But the thing in Mexico, I don't like grooming. I would never have it in my facility in the States. People that you groom for are nuts. They're kind of like cat people, okay? If you just get one little shave wrong, or that's not the style they wanted, they go berserk. You would have thought, you know, once again, you would have thought you'd done something really morally, ethically wrong. It's like, okay, the hair's a little shorter. It looks fine, you know? It's like, no, no, it's my dog. It's, you know, I mean, they really do get really mad at you. You know, so, but in Mexico, grooming really accounts for a very large percentage of our income. And it's the richer people that bring their animals to be groomed, and we do flea control and all that, and because there's so many fleas and ticks, they come on a regular basis. If we did not have grooming down there, we wouldn't be profitable. You know, so once again, you got to look at your area, what fits your area, what are the problems, how can I address those specific problems to the best of the animal's needs and to the best of my financial pocket needs. You know, and sometimes it's, my wife now has a boutique where we sell dog and cat food, and dog collars and all. I don't want any of that in my veterinary hospital, so I bought a separate property, and we do it down there, you know. So, I mean, I'm a veterinarian, you know, I'm not a retail space, you know, but having said that, we also adopt, she has an adoption program. We adopt almost 300, or over 300 animals a year through that facility, and I'm their vet, because, you know, that's who they're connected with, you know, the vast majority. I mean, you ask anyone in our neighborhood, you can go all directions, ask people, where'd you get your dog? Oh, Planet Pet, Planet Pet. You know, we adopted from down there. Adoption's in that, you know, it's a big thing. People are proud about adopting animals. So I have to admit, that helps my business. Now, that company did not make any money. This year it actually might. I think last year it broke even. This year it actually might make a little profit. But I would be willing to lose $20,000 a year, but I don't advertise, because that is enough advertising for me. You know, the good we do there, the goodwill in the community by adopting hit by cars and parvos and those kind of, making them healthy and adopting them out, animals with stories, and just that PR is worth $20,000 a year advertising to me. You know, so I'd rather spend, instead of spending that money on advertising, I'd rather spend it doing the adoption work. So that's how I fund that, and it works both ways. So you got to look in your community, what works, you know, where's your support? That's the big thing. Obviously, you probably not get a lot of support from hunters when it comes to dog issues. You know, and I say that, I don't want to be generalized, because there's some hunters that are really into ecology and really do care. You know, so it just all depends, you know. You're probably not get a whole lot of support from the little ladies in tennis shoes with 10 cats in their backyard, because they don't have any finances too. Now, could they come and clean your kennels? Could they come and volunteer? Sure, you might get that. And I've had people bake cakes, cookies. I've had people come and volunteer their children. No, I don't have any, but here, take my kid. He'll clean cages for you for a week, you know. So, you know, anything you could bargain with them is something, it makes them put a value on that animal. And I do believe in putting a value on the animal. When I have to put a greater value on your animal than you do, there's a problem, okay? And that's really hard, and people don't understand that. But as a vet, if you're always putting a higher value on the very animal of the owner, then you're never going to meet. You're never going to be, you know, you're always going to be in conflict. And I don't know how you get around that conflict, because sometimes you just want to kill some of your clients. I haven't yet, at least I won't admit it anyway. So, you know, full service, my goal is always the same, have a full service veterinary hospital. My clinic in Slovakia opened a little room, and they started selling dog food and little treats for a while. It worked for a while, then they stopped doing it. My one vet that spun off and started her own clinic, Katarina, in her clinic, she has all kinds of dog treats and cat stuff and things like that, and they make pretty good money off that. So once again, the neighborhood, all those things are different, you know. I think the other clinic would have made money, but Chucky, Dr. Hudick, just didn't want to bother with it. Like, it wasn't, he was making enough money, so he thought, well, I don't need to do this. You know, it's a pain in my butt. And in some ways it is. Retail is a problem, you know. So people bring something back. I like the people that bring back. My dog didn't like that. And they take a big old bag, and they bring it back, there's like that much kibble on the bottom of it. Well, someone must have liked it. You know, someone's been eating that food, and then they want to, you know, in the States that happens all the time. Can I get a new bag, or can I change this? And no, you already used the bag. So, but you know, food, toys, behavioral classes, those are good. I mean, if you have I have a vet that does lectures for basically for people having babies. How do you introduce dogs to babies, you know, cats, those kind of things. And we go to the hospitals. And the hospital approached us. It wasn't our idea. I would like to say we were smart and we figured it out, but the hospital said, you know, we have people ask us, you know, they have these dogs, they've been like part of their family, now they have a new child coming, they don't know what to do. You know, what do we have to worry about? Do we have to worry about toxo with the pregnant female? Doctors don't know anything about toxo, for the record. They're trying to say, get rid of the cat, get rid of the cat. It's always get rid of the cat, you know, which is ridiculous. You know, so we started doing those classes at the hospital, and it really, once again, we started getting business from that. You know, it's a positive two-way street. You know, because we do the classes for free. We don't charge for it. We volunteer our time. You know, that's an educational process. I wish I had the space to do training, dog training. You know, my wife would be really good at it. We just don't have the space to do it yet. We'll see how that plays out. Educational programs. I go into high school. We used to do a lot of dissection in our high school. You know, they come with mummified cats and things like that. And now, several of the classes, we just take a dog and a cat and we spay and neuter them in the classroom. You know, now I do make the incisions a little bit bigger, but I'll pull out a spleen, show them what it is, you know, kind of pull up the bladder, you know, different things. But they're always my animals. They're never one of my, or they're one of my clients who volunteers for animal. And I do have clients that will volunteer their animals that say, you know, look, I know what you're doing, it's okay, you know. The incision's a little bit longer, we get a little bit more extra pain meds, but the truth is the incisions are still smaller than half the incisions I see around the world when it comes down to it, so it is relative. Fostering programs. I love fostering programs. The advantage of a fostering program, if you have one or two animals in a foster home, it's more like that animal has real welfare. I mean, it's looked at. It's not the same as putting 10 animals in a cage, you know. So I'm a big fan of fostering. You know, once again, we have a few cages in our boutique. We're really minimal what we can handle. You know, we never have more than 20 animals. But the vast majority of animals are in foster homes. And they're on the internet and things like that, you know. So we can get into how you market yourself on the internet and all that, but everybody's on the internet nowadays, so, and you can go to the internet and you can look at certain breeds or certain things, and so it's all right there. And we, you know, we work with other groups, you know, we'll take their animals and post them on our website, say this animal's adopted, is available for adoption at so-and-so place, you know, and you can try to give a little history, those kind of things. It's funny, half the places in the world, if you have a three-legged animal, you cannot get them adopted. In Mexico, trying to adopt a three-legged animal is next to impossible. You take a three-legged animal in the United States, it's adopted the next day because it has a story, you know. So in the UK, I understand it's kind of the same way. So it's just, you know, once again, cultural difference. It's understanding those differences. I haven't got to where I've cut a leg off just to adopt an animal, but I've considered it a few times. Had a cat in there for like 2 years. I'm like, okay, this cat really needs to go. Let's cut a leg off. Maybe we'll get adopted fast. The other thing we do is veterinary training. All my facilities. I want in Bratislava, Slovakia, one in Mérida, Mexico, and Denver. If you get to my facility, we'll train you for free. All right? We'll house you. We always have an extra room, extra bathroom. I build them that way. And we house you for free, and we train you for free. This summer, we had 2 vet students from Brno. We had 2 Slovakian vets from Slovakia, and we had 1 Mexican student coming up. The Mexican student is graduating about now, I think in a couple weeks. He's already done 500 or 600 surgeries. He's very competent. One of the young ladies that from Brno, #1 in her class, straight A's, all through vet school. Really, really smart. Can do a dog spay in 20 minutes or less, you know. And she's only done a couple hundred surgeries. And she's been to Montana twice, with the native reservations doing work, and she's been to Mexico once. My Mexican veterinarian, we do campaigns like every month down there. So one of the reasons he's a little behind in school because he does too many campaigns, you know. So luckily, his major professor likes us and says, "Oh, no problem, just make it up later," you know. So he's actually making up work. He should already graduate, so he's just making up work. But you know, it's just amazing how these vets are 10 times better than I ever was coming out of vet school. I mean, they're just, but they have that opportunity to learn while they're in school. And let's face it, most of us, even in America, at Colorado State, when I graduated, we had Bose Rock, who writes books. It was one of his last year's teaching. Pierre Amati was at CSU. I mean, Pierre Amati's books are, we had, Swartz, Ager, Dr. Ager, he does more with KDs than probably anyone in the world. I mean, we had really, really good surgeons there. And most times it's like, your student, I mean, there's the doctor, there's residents, there's interns, then there's the senior students and the junior students, and, I mean, that's about it, and you might be able to do 1, 2, 3 surgeries max, and then you're out there and it's like, okay, just turn your loose. You can do surgery, right? Sure, yeah, here it is, do it, And you had no clue, you haven't done enough, there's no way. Because surgery, like all medicine, is an art form, and the more you do, the better you get. Now, this is confusing, but this is how Spay-it-forward works. My company in Denver is for-profit. We're going to do, say, over $3 million this year. It's a for-profit. It's really big. We have lots of clients. 2 years ago, we just started asking our clients, so say we're doing about 60,000 people a year come through. We check them out every evening. Would you like to donate $1 towards spay and neuter? And we made probably $40,000 this year just by asking that. Simple question. All right. Some people write us a check for 100. Some people say no. And you just never know. But if you don't ask, you'll never get anything. It's a simple thing. You're a for-profit hospital. They know we do nonprofit work. I mean, we have our bulletin board. We have stuff from Mexico and Slovakia and all those kind of things. So most of it, certainly in our neighborhood, the people who come to us the most, they know what we do. And they may be 6 times a year. Well, they may only donate 1 time a year. But we always ask. It just becomes one of those things. It's mandatory. I require my front office staff to ask in a nice, polite manner. Would you like to make a donation today for spay-it-neuter? Help spay-it-neuter. Would you like to make a donation to whatever? And people can check what they want to, too. If they want to donate just for training veterinarians, they can do that. So, we're trying to give people options. But from that, we built Slovakia, we built Mexico. Both places will train veterinarians. I can just call up, email Chucky, says, hey, I got 2 Serbian vets that need to come, which happened just a few months ago. Can you take care of them? No problem. Get them here, show up all the time. And he takes care of them and shows them how to do surgery. And this last international conference, their boss came up to me, I'd never met him before, and said, thank you, those guys really had a great time, they learned a lot. What are you talking about? No, they went to your clinic in Slovakia. I wasn't there, So my vets are in tune with what I do, and they do the same thing. I say they're my vets, they're their own vets, it's their facility. They can do what, they could tell me to go fly a kite, but the point is, they're friends, and they know they have a world view, and they know that the future is training and helping other people. And so I'm really proud of them. So we do that training, they both do the training, they help, when they pay me back money, I put it in my nonprofit, do nonprofit work with it. So once again, that helps the whole nonprofit side of it. They do low cost, every place they do kind of a sliding scale, but we don't brag about it. In Mexico, our prices are actually pretty high because we deal with the Anglos and the rich people. So, but then, we're like the Robin Hoods of veterinary medicine. We take that money and we shift it down and help the poor. So a lot of times we'll do our normal prices at our facility, but then we go out and do our nonprofit work outside our facility, which seems to be one of the best ways to do it, But it all depends on, once again, your situation, A lot of places, like in Slovakia, you're not allowed to go out and do spay and neuter yet. We're pushing that boundary, in like a mobile situation. The vet board doesn't like it, they found it. But now the European Union has put a bunch of money in, and they want us to get to the gypsy area, places like that, and they're kind of looking at, people are starting to do those kind of things. They're definitely going there versus having the animals brought to them. If you want to get poor people are poor for a reason. Partially it's education, but poor people make poor decisions many times too. And I'm making a blanket statement in America. There's a difference, There's a difference between living close to the earth and being poor. You say that person doesn't have much money, but they have a decent life, because they have fruits and vegetables, they have a house, those kind of things, In America, there's a lot of drug abuse, alcoholism. Reservations are horrible, just amazing amount of alcoholism and drug abuse on reservations. So, we have many places where there are no resources. So those are definitely different. But, the gypsy villages are really hard to get into. They're suspicious, and they're dangerous potentially, So you have that. There's a real potential for, your drugs being taken or, harm to you. So those are all factors into this, but you're not going to get them to bring the animal to you. There's no way. It's never going to happen. But if you go to them, I always say, if you really want to get spay neuter, you go to the poor areas, and you literally have to take the animals from their hands, and they'll usually let you go fix them and bring them back, which costs more money, or go to them, set up somewhere, and do them right there. And when we first went to the first reservation, the Indians were like, well, who are these white people, you know? And they'll come in, they'll look around, and we do 5 animals in a day, you know, like sitting around twiddling our thumbs, nothing to do, you know. Next day, a few more. Next day, a few more. And then next year, plenty, you know. So once they know they can trust you, and we have nothing to hide, then, and you're not preaching to them, because you don't go in there, you should bring your animal in. You know, we don't do that. We do it. If they don't want to bring them, they don't want to bring them. We'll talk to them why we think they should, you know. Anyone wants to talk to us, and we'll certainly interact with them in any way we can. And we certainly spend money in that community. We try to go around and, you know, use the local restaurants and things like that, versus so many of the people that go there, they stay off the reservation, they come in, rant and rave, try to do something, and they go back off, you know. And the Indians have no respect for it. You know, the Americans have no respect for it because of that. So it isn't, and we don't usually go unless we've been invited by someone from the tribe, from the tribal council. That's the other thing. So it's finding those animal people, have those animal people approach the tribal council, say, hey, these people want to come, they want to help us, can we do this, you know? And then you get an official invitation. It makes you much more accepted, I guess is the point. But my nonprofit, Planned Parenthood, puts money, sometimes when we get a little low, I just take the checkbook out and write it and send it over to the nonprofit, you know. So, and I have friends that can do the same thing. So luckily, you know, we really get a pickle. We can ask people for some donations. You know, I have a few big contributors that we can ask on special occasions. We're actually looking at a sterilization pill in Mexico, and friends of mine wrote a $40,000 check to do some research down there. Now, you know, those are the kind of friends to have, quite frankly, but they believe in what they're doing, you know. We have active adoption programs, we do education, we try to work with local governments. In Mexico, the first year we did the spay-neuter, most of the vets, well, all the vets hated us, is the bottom line. All right, we're 7 years out now. Now vets are standing in line to come, okay? So part of it's a generational thing. The older established vets are never gonna like what we do. They're just not, it's just the way it is. But the younger vets are like, how'd you do that? You know, what can I do? You know, how can I be involved? So we went from no help to now lots of help, you know? And that's a really, and the thing is, we just graduated 12 kids from the university that have come up 3-4 years doing surgery and stuff with us. What do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna go out and badmouth us? Not a chance. They're gonna say, good guy, you know, good guys, let's work with them. If they establish their own clinics, my fear is they're all gonna wanna work for me. I'm not sure I can hire them all. But you know, if they go out and do work with other people, they're gonna be positive about it, you know? And I mean, I think that's a really important thing. So to me, the best of both worlds is having a nonprofit, an NGO, that's run by me or you as a veterinarian, and then you do nonprofit work with it. You figure out the best way you can make. But if you're an NGO, if you're not a humane society, then my thing is, don't just think about building a shelter. Everybody, the first thing is we have to have a shelter in this town. You know, we have to, you know, no, that's probably the last thing you need, especially in a smaller village. What you need is to find your local vet, figure out a way to raise money for them so they can get paid. I have no problem with you paying vets. We should get paid for our time and our services. We're pretty educated. Having said that, as veterinarians, you have to be flexible. It's okay to come down a little. It's okay to work. It's okay to do some free trade for every now and then. That's still a positive thing. It's trying to find that balance. You know, and the more you worry about money, then the harder it's going to be to do nonprofit work. You know, but once again, if you start out with every piece of equipment and you know you're $1 million in debt, you're not going to want to do nonprofit work because there's not enough money in it. You know, you have to pay that back, and that's a reality. So if that's the way you go, then you need to explain. I said, listen, I just can't afford to do it. When vets tell me they can't afford to do a tomcat neuter for less than $200, $300, I don't know how it's possible. You know, I mean, I don't see how it's possible. But there's vets that actually believe that you cannot do a tomcat for less than $200 or $300 and make money. You know, you can't do a tomcat for less than $200 or $300 and make money. I can do it for $5 or $10 and make money. So, you know, but we make it up in volume. I take the McDonald's approach. You know, you don't make a lot on everything, but you make something on everything. You know, just a small amount and do as much as you can. So, and this is just some of the stats from my clinic. In 2008, well, 2003 is when we built Slovakia. 2008 we built Mexico. My next project is built International Training Center in Mexico near Cancun. So everybody want to come and train there. We can house 10 vets at a time. Once again, we'll house you for free, 2 weeks, 2 months. I don't care how long you stay, and we'll train you. They had interns from Mexico, Panama, Costa Rica, Canada, US. I say Canada, US, it's kind of funny. Vets come down to want to volunteer, and they're like, they've been in the vet field for 20 years. Well, they haven't done a spay in 20 years either. You know, so we have to actually teach the veterinarian. You think, well, they're from Canada, from America, they must know what they're, no, they're horrible. You know, my Mexican vets are 10 times, my Mexican vets are 10 times better than half the vets I know in the States. So you can see what we went from 62,000 to 200,000, and now we're closer to 300,000, over 300,000. So we just keep going up. Those are totally free surgeries. Our first big campaign, 2010, 1,300. Then next year, 17. Next year, 1975. This year, 2,775. Okay, that's a new world record, 6 days. 2,775. It was easy. And the truth is, that almost 3,000 animals was easier than that 1,300 animals. And we had almost the same number of people. The difference is the quality over time as they improved and improved. The students that we're working with now are 10 times better than they were in 2008. You know, and that's what training does for you. And when people say, well, we train these vets and then they just leave, I don't care. If you can take a vet that does a surgery like that and make a surgery like that, and if nothing else, it's in the welfare of the animals he deals with. He may never do nonprofit work, but he's a better surgeon. The animals are better off for it. So I don't care who I train. I'll train anyone. You know, I don't particularly like people who aren't going to help at some point, but you know, that's another story. You know, and you figure that usually when you're drinking beer and things come out. You know, so. In Slovakia, you can see, you know, it stays more or less the same, you know, because these are done over time. It's like they can't do the mobile stuff, so he's working with different groups of stuff. So it just, you know, it's all through all through his place, or he goes to the shelter. You're allowed to do them at shelters in Slovakia. They have some weird rules, but you can do them at shelters, and the shelters are just absolutely. You don't have to have a surgical suite, but illegally you can do them at shelters, and they're really, really dirty and bad. But it is what it is. So both places, he's trained people from all over. Now we have a few other places, but that's at the time. We have Romania, you know, all these different places, and we had a couple people from Serbia. So, you know, you're only limited by your imagination, I guess is the point. And I'm just going to go through. These are our 3 big clinics. This is the Mexico clinic in Slovakia, and that's my clinic in Denver, Colorado. So you look at demographics. If you're a veterinarian, like, why do you pick the spot you pick to build a clinic? Oh, there's not much over here, let's just build over here. Well, you know, that's what most of us do, in all honesty. You know, that's how I got that for my first clinic. It was, they called me up and said, well, you have this building sitting here, $65,000, really cheap. It was a vet hospital for a long time. There was an NGO that owned it. Would you like to buy it? Because they heard about me. I said, sure, that price, like, I can't go wrong. Horrible neighborhood. The same clinic now in that neighborhood is worth about $1 million. All right, now I've taken good care of my building, but I haven't taken that good care of my building. I like to say I'm smart. That was surely by nothing but luck. Okay, the neighborhood changed. Okay, now that building, we thought about it. Where's the best place? How's the city going to grow? You know, you're limited in Slovakia. You're right up against the river, and you have the mountains and all these different things. So what's the best demographics? You know, where are the wealthy people going to? You know, those are the things that matter. Same here. I went down to Mexico. I had 3 times before we picked that location. We looked at dozens of places. You know, I was like, should we do it here? Could we do it here? This is on a major avenue that everyone goes by because they go to the beach. So it's right there, you know, and it's behind this house, or that was a house that we converted. Behind there, the mayor is not too far. The chief of police is not too far. It's a very good neighborhood, very safe neighborhood. So why did we pick it? That's why, because we make money, you know. So it was a very good money. And for the record, the white people live out near the beach, which is about a 20-minute drive. So when they come into town, who do they see first? Us. And all my guys speak English. So it works out really good. So this is our clinic down in Mexico. That's a gas anesthesia machine. We have a new one over here now. You don't see it, it's not there yet. But the point is, you know, this is kind of sparse. We've redone this. It's all now. This is all enclosed up. This is all enclosed up there, and this is all painted. I actually have tile at the wall. I don't like the flat, you know, so the flat white paint walls get blood on it really hard to wipe. So now we have tile all the way up, things like that. So, you know, each year we try to make a few improvements, and we've expanded. We used to have a really nice little swimming pool. Now it's where the X-ray machine is. I kind of like the swimming pool, but you know, we didn't have the space, so okay, the swimming pool goes, fill it with concrete, and we'll put an X-ray room in there, and that's what we've done. This is the clinic in Slovakia, just in the first exam room. There's a waiting room out in front of that. We have 2 exam rooms, and we have a surgery suite. They don't keep a lot of animals in hospital in Slovakia. They tend to send them out. They send them home with drip sets and everything else. It's kind of weird. They don't do hospitalization per se. Rarely, I mean, but for the most part, and I don't know how it is here, It's kind of crazy. Like some animals, they sit down, like, is that going to live over the night? Oh, it's okay, they'll take it home. And the people want to take them home. You know, I mean, you know, so they hook them up to IVs and walk out with them and hold the IVs. You know, so, I don't know. And this is our clinic in Denver. You know, Tony, that's, you know, you take a picture, I gotta get a mask on. Oh, come on, you know, he doesn't wear that mask because he never wears the mask. You know? And that's, you know, even in these films you'll see, just so you know, like Dr. Marvin Mackey, if you show that, he'll be masked, hat, gown, all that. Those guys don't do that in real life. I'm sorry. Like, but, you know, well, it's better if we present it that way. My position, well, it's not better because then we're feeding into this idea that you have to be that way. And if you do something else, you're doing something substandard. I'll match my surgical skills against anyone in the freaking world right now in soft tissue. Bone surgery, not so much, but soft tissue, I'm not afraid. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to vary from my technique because some professor's in town. You know, it just ain't going to happen. So obviously we got that. Seen that one before. Same thing, totally different. You know, this is up in, oh, sorry, go back here. Go that way. This is in Montana. So these are the mask units. And once again, some people wear masks, you know. They were from a university, so they are all masked up, you know. And this is a young lady who's, I can't think of her name, she's out of Lake Virginia. But she's probably done, I don't know, 100,000 spacing neuters. I mean, she knows. You don't need no mask, you know, that's fine. And first, even the drape should be flipped over that foot. I mean, that even bothers me a little bit, but the truth is, it's amazing what you can get away with. And what makes you good at practice is knowing what you can get away with. Where that line is you don't want to cross under any circumstance, you know. And that's what they don't teach you in vet school. They teach you the absolute Cadillac method, which is great, but how about the Volkswagen? If I get to the same point and I cost 1/10 the amount, and the outcome's the same. For me, it's about outcome. You're not a good surgeon unless your complication rate is really low. You know, not how fast you are, not how much money you can make, what's your complication rate. That's all I want to know. What's your complication rate? What's your death rate? What's your complication rate? You know, post-surgery. That, to me, makes the biggest difference in the world. And this is down in Mexico, and once again, people will stand in line, and you know, it's a community affair. This was actually up in Montana here on reservations, but we have a lot of volunteers. You know, this is the young lady from Slovakia, from India. This is one of my runners. I coach distance running, so I always bring high school kids. And when we make high school kids come in, take turns volunteering. So they come through, they volunteer. Sometimes we pay them, sometimes we don't. You know, sometimes they're paid employees. And one of my best surgical nurses started working for me when he was like 14 years old in high school. You know, and so I mean, he's never gone any form of training, but he can tube animals upside down, hit IVs, hit tongue veins, you name it, he can do it. I mean, he's just really, really good at that. But he just has been doing it for so long, you know. No one told him that he shouldn't be able to do it, so he just always assumed he could, no big deal. And this is down in Mexico, how we set up, you know, multiple surgery tables, and usually away, same here, this is Montana, you know. But it's a massive campaign when we do these things. And there's nothing wrong with doing smaller ones, you know. I've seen that one before. It's Dr. Marvin Mackey, he truly is a legend in this field, if you do any reading at all. Dr. Suka there is from Japan. She came to me not speaking any English, and now she works for me full time. She's got a green card in America. She's married to a Serbian. They have a baby. It's a Serbasian. Cutest kid, but the Serbian's like this tall, and she's like this, and the baby's almost as tall as her already. So, you know, cutest kid in the world. But she can do cat spays all day long, 4 minutes or less. I mean, impeccable, just that size all day. You know, I mean, and you have exceptions, every rule, pregnant, things like that, but she's just so fast. And she's typical Japanese. I get bored. I play around with different things. I'm in a glue phase. I like glue now, you know. Sometimes I do intradermal, sometimes I do external reverse stitches, sometimes I use glue. So I get bored. And Japanese are not that way. I taught her one technique, and I said, well, try glue now. She says, no, I don't like that. You know, and that's just the way she is. Yeah, she has her technique, but she's mastered it, and that's what they do. I mean, you know, I'm generalizing, but the Japanese are very much that way culturally. I never understood that until after I saw her. And this young lady, talk about a small world, Astrid, is from India. She came and studied, went back to India, haven't talked to her in years. I went over for Mission Rabies just a couple weeks ago, and who I get a phone call from? Astrid. She's working in Goa, and she was working with Mission Rabies in Goa, and she heard about Dr. Young. She said, it has to be the same Dr. Young, and she's calling me. I said, yeah. So we reconnected after, I don't know, 10 years, you know. So it is a small world in the spay-neuter field, you know, around the world that people get involved and donate their time. And Tony, he was a student. He's as good as anybody in the world at spay neuter. I mean, he's an amazing individual. And I met him lecturing down there. He was the only one that spoke English, so he got stuck with me. So he showed me around, we talked, and then he came up and did some studying with me, and then the next thing you know, let's open another clinic up, you know, so that's what we did. And just, you know, and now he considers me his father, so it's worked out pretty good, you know, so I can trust him. And same thing, you know, we have, obviously the vets are communicating there, but, you know, we just have tremendous numbers of people. I mean, you just see all the support staff, you know, and a lot of times we'll bring people in. You know, these are her puppies, you know, and so, you know, we talk to people, we let them bring their animals, help us out, take them off. You know, we try to tell people not to touch anything on the table, things like that. You know, sometimes they do, and you have to start over, but for the most part, things go really well. And it's part of the educational process. And once again, I tend to have a lot of young kids. This is Dr. Ed Umlauf. He's got a PhD in spinal cord trauma, great surgeon, a little crazy, a lot of us are, you know. But here, you know, he's just talking about the benefits of spay neuter to this group of kids, you know, and we do a lot of that. He goes, well, how can people in surgery? Well, it's not like a real surgery room, you know, it really isn't. And it's not like those people are breathing into that animal, and, you know, it's a little hole in a drape, and, you know, a tiny little hole in the animal, so what's going to get in there? You know, really, it's not possible. And, you know, just like many places, you can see, obviously we do young animals, but, you know, these are how they come to us many times. You know, a bunch of animals in the back of a truck or whatever, you know, you just never know the condition. You know, people riding bicycles with 5 animals stuck, you know, on the side of the bicycle. You know, it's amazing what you'll see for transportation to and from. And the same old thing, you know, this is one, I have a lot of t-shirts that say, please neuter your pets and weird friends and relatives. And I say, if you met my relatives, you know why I wear that shirt, okay? So, and we should have neutered them a long time ago, I think. So, Dr. Aurelian from Romania, I don't know, he's as good as anybody in the world. And his brother, Pepe, I don't know him that well, but we just did this pay and neuter over in Barcelona, and he went and said, we'll do the flank. You know, okay, you do the flank, I don't know. He did a cat spay to a hole you couldn't put a pencil in. I mean, it was that big. It was ridiculous. You know, they don't put a stitch on the muscle because the muscles go different directions, so it just slides down and they put one drop of glue in the skin. That was it. I mean, you know, I was like, whoa, that's really, really good. Now, can he do that all day long? I don't know, but he did it on that one animal, and I was certainly impressed with it. And the funny part is, he's Ricky's brother, and Ricky only does midline. I don't like flank, I don't do flank. And Pepe only does flank, unless he has to do midline, so this is all different. Liliana, she works for me in Mexico, and she's an incredible surgeon. Once again, she was not good at all. I wasn't sure she's ever going to be a good surgeon. Now, I mean, she's better than the guys. I can't say that. I'll probably get in trouble if they find out about this. But she's actually better than the guys down there. And my guys are really good down there. So, Dr. Martin Mackey, that's how animals come to us half the time, you know. However, this is one of our sterilization campaigns. You can see this is our cold tray sterilization. You know, we have tables, the plastic tables. Sometimes they put, you know, plastic wrap on them. You know, you think, okay, we're going to put plastic on, keeps the table clean. You know, okay, once you do the first animal, the plastic, unless you're going to change it every time, does it really matter? Really? I mean, you wipe it down in between the animals most of the time, you know, but the reality of it is, you know, what difference does it make? They all have ticks and fleas, so it's not like you're going to transfer something, because there's not an animal out down there that doesn't have a tick or a flea on it. It's not possible. In fact, usually you jump in your incision and, you know, look like the animal's almost alive on the table. So, and this is recovery. You know, this would obviously be that gentleman's dog, but we have people all along there. And that's more Tony. See, he doesn't have his mask on there, you know. And that's a pretty big hole, looks like to me. So, this gentleman was from Dominica, so we have people, Indians. So this is Raj. He's since passed. He was my vet from India that we opened a clinic together, and he died. And that cost me a little bit of money because he died, but you know, you don't plan on, at least he died, I didn't, so I can't complain a whole lot. I lost a little bit of money, but really great guy. He took me back to, you know, we were training people in India, and this was the place where you kind of got the basics, but they were kind of breaking sterility all the time, you know. And you know, once again, we do a lot of training. I'm big into training. I really think that's the way to go. If for no reason, it's in the benefit of the animal, you know, and the benefit, long-term benefit of the animal. And we always go to vet schools. You know, I always go to vet schools. You give lectures with students. So, and that's how you change the real future right there. The students. The students are open-minded about this. The professors, they've been teaching the same thing for 40 years. They're not going to change. You know, it's a generational thing. I say another 20 years, all the old fat white guys in America that are in charge are all going to be dead. All right, and it's all going to be women in charge. And some of them are going to be very nice, but for the most part, they're going to be much more compassionate, and a lot of things are going to happen differently. You know, so but for my class had a lot of girls that were more like guys, and then now there's more sympathetic women. And you could not get into vet school if you said you were a member of PETA. You could not get into vet school if you said you're into animal welfare, animal rights. You know, that was a no-no 20 years ago. Now they accept you. You know, 20 years ago, no way. You know, you mention any of those kind of things. No, you want to be in vet school because you want to learn about medicine. You want to learn about science, which is true. But you can't have compassion. You know, if you have compassion, we don't want you because you're going to be a problem for us. You know, and that really is the way to look at it. The 5 freedoms. I just want to go over these briefly. This is kind of the end of everything. Freedom from hunger seems pretty basic. Okay, so if you have 700, 800, 1,200 dogs on your property, and I know people who do in different places like Poland, but you have to beg for food to feed them. Are you doing something in their welfare? Is that good for them? You tell me. I mean, not in my mind, you know. I think it makes more sense. Oh, I don't believe in euthanasia. I don't believe in spay neuter. When the puppies are born, it's okay because the other dogs eat them. So we don't really have a puppy problem. They don't get eaten. I'm not sure that's animal welfare. You know, in my mind, I have some problems with that. Freedom from fear and distress. You know, cats do a really good job of hiding fear and distress. The problem is cat people don't understand cats. And they don't understand when they take 10 cats off the street from different colonies and throw them all in together. Not only do you just change all kinds of potential diseases between those cats, you just increase their stress level logarithmically. And they don't, just because a cat, when we were in Barcelona, we went to one of the shelters, and you know, they had these big catteries. That's the big thing now, put them in all catteries. And the problem with that is cats don't do well in big social environments. Well, they live in colonies. They live and related. They're the same genetically. They know each other. They smell each other. They know who they are. They know that's my sister, that's my aunt. When those things, they throw them in there. We walked in there, and one cat would come up, you know, and greet you, maybe 2. All the others don't even move. You know, they don't want to move. They go by someone gets mad and swat them, you know. I mean, that's not a cat's life. That's a horrible life for a cat. Absolutely horrible. Freedom from pain, injury, and illness. Well, that's where we come in, you know. We like to get paid for some of that to make them free of their pain, injury, and illness, you know. But the truth is, that's a pretty basic right, you know, for a companion animal. Freedom from discomfort. It kind of goes with the same, you know, but discomfort can be stress. It can be mental discomfort. You know, if you have a dog, an example one of the behavior guys said was they had a police dog that was surrendered, and everyone was afraid of it. And it was kind of aggressive, and all it wanted was a job. He said, all you had to do is get a ball for it, or go hide, you know, have it smell something, go hide it, it'll go find it. It just wanted a job. So when they're high-working dogs, and all of a sudden they're stuck in a cage, they go nuts. You know, and you see that, we call it cage crazy. You know, they really do go cage crazy. You know, we have that stereotypical behavior where they're sitting there jumping circles, you know, just circle, 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 and they bark and bark and bark. Who's going to adopt an animal like that? You know, people don't want them because they've been there for how many months and years doing the same thing, you know? I mean, it really is, you have to look, you know, stand back and look, would you want to live like that? Now, is it easy to make a call and say, well, we need youth, when do you make that call, you know? But they had one dog in the shelter that I think had been there 7 years. I mean, okay, what's the odds of they getting adopted after 7 years, really? And is it in that dog's interest to live in a small cage for the rest of its life? I'm just not convinced it is. You know, that gets in that whole welfare. And we're still arguing over these. But I'll tell you this, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we never argued over this stuff. We just ignored it. It did not exist. So it's on the game plan. It's like the law. It's the law now. It's a matter of figuring out how we're going to enforce it, how we're going to work with it. You know, so it's evolving all the time as we evolve with it. And eventually, in places like England and places like that, you just don't have these issues because they have people who are going to take care of them, who are going to be, well, first off, they don't have animals that stick around for 7 years. They're going to adopt, they have a higher adoption rate. They have behavioral counseling, they have behavioral modification. So they're going to work on those animals. And if they know they can't fix the animal, they're going to euthanize it. And it may only be a few a year, but they're going to get rid of the ones that they know cannot adapt to the environment they're in. And I do think that's in their best long-term inference. Freedom to express normal behavior. What is normal behavior? You know, the telos of the animal. What makes a dog a dog? What makes a cat? If you're a cat person, you should read up something about cats so you know what you're dealing with. Because cats are not small dogs. And we treat them like small dogs. You know, just shove them all in there, you know, and they have incredible complicated diseases. If a kitten tests for leukemia, first off, when you test a kitten for leukemia, because you get false positives, and then you're stuck, okay, now do I euthanize it? Does it really have leukemia? It looks healthy, happy. Now if I adopt it and it breaks with leukemia, then I get in trouble, or someone doesn't like me, you know. If I kill it, then my group doesn't like me because I'm killing kittens that are healthy, You know, so, I mean, they have such complex diseases, you know, but part of the problem is they're not fully domesticated. I mean, really, they've only been domesticated between 6,000 and 10,000 years, unlike the dog. So, it is tough. Express normal behavior, you know, it goes back. What is that normal behavior? That's a tough call, you know. But I know what my normal behavior for my lab is. He loves to run, he loves to swim. You know, those are the things he loves to do. I know what he loves to do, and so he gets to do those things. My pug, it's raining, looks outside. No, I ain't going outside, it's rain, you know, forget it. You know, totally different. Now my lab will run out there, no problem. You know, my pug, no way. My Panamanian street dog loves the snow. Go figure that, it's a animal. So maybe it's just, she doesn't know it's different for her, but you know, she'll run out and roll in the snow, and she loves that. She has long hair. You know, once again, my pug, like, nah, it's cold, I'm staying inside, you know, so they're just all different. And certainly breeds have propensities. You know, we've bred certain breeds for certain things. But, you know, just because you have a lab, doesn't mean every lab likes to swim. You assume they do. Or every lab's going to chase a duck or bring a duck back from you. You know, they're good hunters. They're not. They're individual animals too. You know, they have certain propensities based on how we bred them. But just so you know, most breeds have only existed for about 200 years. The vast majority of breeds have only been in the last 200 years. You know, some of the German breeds, some of the Russian breeds, they go back a little further than that. But, you know, only the canine, you have you know, 100 kilogram to a half kilogram in the same species. You think about that, you know. And it's, you know, I mean, miniature Chihuahua versus, you know, some Mastiff, you know. I mean, 100 kilogram to a half a kilogram. And everything in between, you know. And so, even though it's one species, they have very, very diverse, even more so than people, incredibly diverse individuals within that species. And so you can't just treat them all the same. Can you take that half-pound Chihuahua and put it on a chain in the backyard in Alaska, you know? It's not going to be there come next spring, you know. It's a popsicle stick. So, you know, where if you bring a husky in the house, they pant, they hate it. They hate it. Husky mountains, they hate being in the house. And, you know, when I worked out on patrol, we get calls on animals. They have a dog next door that's not in the doghouse. You go out there, it's a husky. It's laying in the snow. There's a doghouse right around the corner. It doesn't want to go in the doghouse. It just lays in the snow. Because that's what they do. Now, if that was a different dog, I might say that's not, you know, you need to give them a doghouse, things like that. But, you know, it's not that they didn't have a doghouse. The dog chose not to enter the doghouse because it liked laying in the snow. So everyone was different. We have to get to where we look at them as an individual. And that's pretty much it.